Okay, thank you very much, Mitch. Um, well, welcome. This is an exciting topic, and I've been talking to. I'm sorry, I'm just moving my screen around a little bit so I can see everyone. I have been talking to a lot of people about this technology, and we're going to talk about today is called generative AI. Artificial intelligence has been around for a while. We've all heard of AI, and we interact with AI applications every day. Um, Netflix, Amazon are examples of AI, spam reading emails and categorizing them as spam. That's also applications of AI. But most of what we've done in the past is what we would categorize as supervised learning within AI. And so I have a little picture up here, if everyone can see my screen, okay, that really show artificial intelligence tools. And supervised learning, the size of the circle represents the number of applications out there that we all are engaging in every day. Uh, and then there's also reinforcement learning and unsupervised learning, which there are other applications of that, which we've interacted with for years now. However, generative AI, which is represented in this circle here, is a fairly new technology. We've only it's only been with us. The architecture came out. It was a paper was published by DeepMind in 2017, 2018. So this is a very new architecture, and it's called the transformer architecture. GPT, which you've heard of, and GPT-4 and 3 is generative pre-trained transformer. And it's the architecture that generative AI models that we're working with today are built off of. Last year, the reason why it's such a big deal now is although the paper came out in 2018, the first release where the public actually saw the power of this transformer architecture happened last year around November 1st. And that was OpenAI. OpenAI released a tool called ChatGPT, which we've all heard of now. And that was the first chance where the majority of people and non-deep learning type folks actually saw, wow, this is how you engage in a conversation with an AI model. And prior to that, we didn't have that ability to do that. So ChatGPT is the first application of it. Now there are others, which we'll talk about today. There are several others in the market, and we'll continue to see generative AI baked into applications that is just it's almost happening weekly now. We're seeing new applications of generative AI. So today, what we're going to talk about, just to level set, we did send a survey out. Thank you for everyone who responded to the survey. And I like to see where people's experiences are with this. And we have all over the place. Most people have actually worked with ChatGPT, but I think it's still good to just level set everyone's understanding of what exactly is this thing and why does it do what it does, and then work our way up to more advanced topics within this generative AI subject. Please, I want this to be interactive. Fire away. If you have a question, just fire it out. The downside of the virtual one is I can't see you really that well, so I can't tell if people are trekking along or not. In personal one, when we're in a room together, it's incredibly interactive. People just firing away. So I don't mind that. This is not scripted. We can go any way we want. I do have some things to cover, but we can take this in real world examples that you guys are trying to deal with and wondering if either generative AI can help with that, or something you're working on and you're having a problem with. By all means, throw it out there. So I'd like to start it by just jumping right into ChatGPT. That way we can just, get started right in the tool and show everybody what this thing's all about. OpenAI is the company, as I mentioned. If you don't have an account, you can sign up for ChatGPT on their website, openai.com, and you come over to try ChatGPT. You can sign up for the free version and you can test not everything I'm going to be demoing today, but you can get in and at least start engaging in a conversation. It is a conversational chatbot. And if you're using the free version and you don't know where to start, just ask it, how can I use you and my position and my role? And it will engage in a conversation with you. So this is ChatGPT here. Uh, Apologize for those of you who have been using it for a while, but we're going to start this way. If it's just a website, chat.openai.com, and if you sign up for the free version, you only have access to what's called GPT 3.5 model, and that is a legacy model. It has been superseded by a more advanced model called GPT-4. GPT-4 has been trained on larger amounts of data, has greater reasoning skills, and it also has the ability to interact with Excel files. It can run Python against Excel files and do complex calculations. It has plugins available to connect to the outside world and a whole group of applications that have been created. So that's why when I hover on GPT 3.5, there's nothing there. It's just the model, which you can just interact with. If I hover over GPT-4, now we have access to the default, just engaging in conversation versus advanced data analysis, which is a very powerful tool. We've been using it a lot. And it allows you, like I said, to analyze Excel files, write Python against those, and also analyze PDF files and Word documents as well, and images, and then plugins here. So we'll get into all of that. Over on the left is a little sidebar here, and it records all of our conversations. Any chat conversation you engage in will be recorded, and you can always go back to it, and you can look at the results. And a lot of times you'll produce things like I was playing around earlier in a prior meeting. Someone had said, could we create a 2D floor plan for a house? And so we ended up generating some prompts, and it laid out some stuff around a 3D or a home plan, 2,000 square foot. And so that's in there. And if we ever want to go back, we can look at it. Down here on the bottom left is the settings, and settings are extremely important with ChatGPT. If I click on the little three dots here, we have a couple options. We have custom instructions, and we have settings and beta features. And so once you have your account open, you'll be limited to based on if you have the plus version, which is $20 a month, you get access to GPT-4, or if you have the free version, you only have 3.5, as I mentioned, and your settings will be limited. Because I have a GPT-4 and it's $20 a month, and I have to say honestly, it's kind of a no-brainer once you start using it. But by all means, try with the free version. But down here in the settings, if you click on the little settings thing, a couple key points. One is you can set it if it's, if you want the dark or the white background. But under beta features, if you don't go into here and select plugins and turn it on, or the advanced data analysis, it will not appear in your GPT-4 dropdown. So by all means, you should turn it on. Both of those features offer a lot to the user. And then under data controls, there is an option for turning off the history and training. So as you're entering data into ChatGPT, that information is being passed to OpenAI, and they don't sell the data per their security policy and their privacy policy. However, they can use the data for training their model, and other humans will see that data if they happen to be looking at your particular chat to improve it. If you want to turn that off, you can select to deselect it, and then all the chats go away, the history goes away, and then you can let's go back here. And also, it will not, your data that you submit will not be used for training. So I don't do that. We leave it on all the time. Because any of the data we put in, we're not concerned about security. We mask data if we feel like we need to. But if you don't want OpenAI to use your data for training, you can just turn it off. I still would not put social security information in or personal information, but it is a safeguard that you could implement. It just to have an additional safeguard. You can export all of your data that you've been accumulating in your chats. You can do a full download of all those chats, and it will dump it into an export file. And so that's available. And you can share your links. So if you get into a conversation about something, say you're doing a forecast or you're building up a set of documents and you want to then share it, you can share that chat with another person and they can come in and they can continue to add to that chat. And so there's sharing features. If I click on manage, these are all of the shared links that I've shared. Most of them were just for example purposes, just for demo purposes. But if you want to delete it, you can certainly delete it. So just a little bit of housekeeping stuff back here that you definitely want to take a look at it. The other thing, and then I'll pause, custom instructions. Very, very important to understand the power of this, because if I click on custom instructions, this sets the context for ChatGPT. So when you're engaging in your conversation and you're producing content, you have the ability to steer the style, the tone, the professionalism, all of that can be steered by setting context. And so custom instructions have two sections. One is just letting it know who you are. And so I said I'm a data analytics and generative AI consultant. My company specializes in helping customers select and implement generative AI. We are based in Philadelphia. We are experts in data and assisting clients in implementing technical solutions. And I said we are professional, because when I'm engaging in generating content, I wanted to know what perspective to come from. And now it will come from the perspective of a generative AI analytics consultant. Down here, this is extremely important. When you start writing in ChatGPT, you'll notice that you may not like the tone. It may give you platitudes, or I felt like it was making too salesy. So I was generating something and it was just too salesy. It just sounded not realistic and not personal. And so my instructions here are, please refrain from using promotional sales language and avoid business cliches and platitudes. And so immediately change the way the tone, when I write, it will not put any of that language that I did not like. Then I said, maintain a friendly, let me just turn that off there. Sorry, I got that Grammarly thing on there. Maintain a friendly yet professional tone throughout our conversation. Engage in a manner that is conversational, clear, and concise. Your expertise is valued, so feel free to share insights and all that. I actually did not write this. I had ChatGPT write this. So I had it write its own instructions. I told it what I was interested. I wanted to avoid sales language, platitudes, cliches, things like that. I wanted to use natural conversational language. And then I said, write a prompt that I can use. And it wrote itself a prompt. And at the end, it even said, thank you for your cooperation and understanding. So it wrote itself a thank you. Feel free to try this, and you'll notice that, and you have actually up to 1,500 words too. So by all means, you can try a bunch of different ways to use this. And if you go out onto some of the tools I'm going to show you, you'll see examples of how people are using custom instructions. There's some great ideas out there, incredible ideas. So any questions on the setup of ChatGPT? I just want to make sure everyone understands there is some valuable and important steps here. So fire away if you have any questions or thoughts on it.
Is it only available for GPT-4? This part of it?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure. If someone on the line has a free version, the beta features will not be available, like the data analysis feature and the plugins. I don't know if custom instructions are only available for 4, because I see them because I have the plus version. So any other questions on this?
Yeah, Dan, question. The name ChatGPT implies it's text in and text out, but I don't think that's true. Is it? You can feed it graphic files and other media forms, can't you, other than just text?
Yes. Yeah. GPT is generative pre-trained transformers, and that technology is it's called multimodal. And so when we talk about generative AI and this technology, it's a great thing to bring up. It's text to text, text to image, text to audio, text to video. And so there's a bunch of generative capabilities that this technology has. In ChatGPT, you do have the ability. So if I go up into GPT-4 and I come down into the advanced data analysis tool, you'll notice that there's a little plus button here. And so you can attach files. You can upload WAV files. You can upload images. You can upload PDFs, Excel files, a whole bunch of files. Now, they just announced the other day, there are new capabilities coming. And one of the examples is the ability to take an image and to pull specific or identify specific things in the image. So, for example, you could take a picture of your refrigerator and you could say, using the ingredients in my refrigerator, provide me some menu items, some things that I can make. And because it can distinguish each of the objects, it can then write a recipe to create a meal. I don't think that's in here yet, but they said it's rolling out the next week or two. So that will be in here. But yes, to answer your original question, you can upload images. It doesn't create images right now. It will display images from the plugins, but it's not an image generator yet. But that's coming as well. They're going to integrate. OpenAI has a image generator tools called DALL-E, and they have a third version, and they're going to, per the other day, their announcement, they're going to build that into ChatGPT. So you will be able to say, create an image of a farmhouse in Pennsylvania with a blue sky in the background and horses, and it will create that image for you using DALL-E 3. But right now, and I will demonstrate text to image generator tonight. For right now, today for ChatGPT, it will mostly be text to text and text to code like Python and examples like that. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So,
Dan,
yeah.
I don't know if you get into this later or not, but will you be able to talk a little bit about fine tuning?
Yeah. Sure. There's two concepts: fine tuning and embeddings, and I'll talk about both those.
Because I know that one of the things is for compare data, but there's, I guess, privacy issues related to that, and how do you actually fine tune a model?
Yeah, sure. And I'll talk about the difference between, because it is important. Embeddings is one technology, fine tuning is another, and they get blended sometimes. And so when do you use one versus the other? So yes, I definitely will talk about that. All right, so keeping it simple, for the last 80 years, we have been dealing with computers that we call deterministic, hyperliteral. They're modeled after a calculator: input, process, output. And the best example of that is 1 + 1 = 2. And we know that 1 + 1 always equals 2. And if we get a different answer, there's a problem either with the code or something's wrong, because it's deterministic and the answer should be the same. With generative AI, it's very different because we can create unique content that's never been created before. And so we never had the ability to engage with a computer. We've had natural language where you could engage, like Alexa, you can ask questions to, but it's still kind of a dumb version. It doesn't understand what you're asking, really, and there can't be a level of engagement. So with generative AI, so for instance, if I say, I'm just going to use an example here, and just bear with me. It's a simple example, but if I say 1 + 1 =, we'll get 2, and that's a lot of what we've done is we've input, output. But generative AI, we could say, write a learning plan for my 5-year-old who has a learning disability. Now, that's a unique question that I'm just asking because that's on top of mind, and I can just ask it, engage. And so with a generative AI model, it will take very specific requests and will custom and tailor it based on what my needs are. So a 5-year-old with a learning disability. And so now we'll set an objective, set methods. And I didn't say create a weekly plan, create a 6-month plan. I just said create a plan. So it said, okay, well, I'm going to create a weekly plan. And so it kind of comes up with different things for Monday through Friday. And then it gives some additional notes. And what the beauty of this is generative AI can say, because we could Google a learning plan for a 5-year-old to learn math, and we would get templates. We all know that. You got to search and figure out what templates. But now I could say, provide me with 10 fun activities to teach math. And now we'll lay out these 10 activities. And as you can see, we can guide it and take it, as deep as we want to go. And we can make it super specific to an individual. And this is a big deal for parents who've had children who have learning disabilities, is crafting a personalized learning plan for a person is challenging. And it's challenging for teachers, and it's challenging for parents, and you're trying to find resources and all of that. So anyone who's dealt with this knows how big of a deal it is. But right now, within just a few minutes, we have laid out, and obviously this is still pretty generic, but we've laid out a 10-step, we've made it custom to our specific need. And that's generative AI. And it goes on from there. But it's the ability to interact using natural language, and the ability for the model to then create content for us to consume. And then from here, we're gonna get into a whole bunch of other examples. Any questions on the difference in computers over the past 80 years and what we are dealing with now, and why it's the reason why this is a big deal, and this will shape a lot of things going forward. But any questions or anything? Okay, all right, good. So let's take it to another step. So one of the things we're going to focus on GPT-4. So if I come over here and I create a new chat, and I have GPT-4, come down, and we were using the default mode, we we're just engaging in a conversation. Well, next we'll take the plugins. And so plugins allow you, right now, currently, there are over 1,000 plugins. And it's just like the App Store. When we first started with the App Store, there were 10 apps, 12 apps, 15 apps. Well, the plugin store for ChatGPT now has over 122 pages with 8 plugins on each page. So we are, half of them, I'm not even sure if they're any good. I have no idea. I've tried some and they're okay. But what companies have done now is create ability for you to interact in that, create in natural language. You say what you're interested in, and then it can go out and call through APIs. It can call and execute certain tasks. For purposes today, we're only going to focus on calling the web, going out and doing a YouTube video summary, and we're going to keep it simple. But know that if you have a particular interest, there's probably a plugin related to what you're interested in doing. I would caution you, a lot of the plugins I have found to be, many of them have found to be a little bumpy, a little clunky, we'll call it. And I would rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. Many of them are at a 5 or 6. So don't think it's going to be your autonomous agent that's just going to go out and do stuff for you. We're not there yet. However, I think there's a lot of good ideas that app builders have actually created. So if you're interested in one, you find it, and then you click on the install. It installs it to your local machine. It's not something that stays with you if you go to another computer. Click OK. And then now in the drop down, there are lots of plugins here. And you notice I have Web Pilot, which allows you to search web pages. I have video summary. Trip.com has one where you could say, I want to go to Florida, from Philadelphia to Florida on October 4th. Find me an airfare, and it will do that. And it's okay. I mean, it's okay. It's Google just released this in their Bard product as well. So for our purposes today, though, we'll just stick with the link reader, which is another one which allows us to go to the internet. And if I highlight this, it says, read any links, web pages, YouTube, PDFs, or images, or Word docs. I typically just use it for going to websites. So our first example is review the following website, and it's the Beacon for Life website. And let's see what happens. Sometimes you'll hit this, and you do get a bug sometimes. Today, for instance, Mitch told me that ChatGPT was down. So if you encounter an error or something, just realize that there's massive amounts of users coming online here, and things do happen. So I want to click go here, and this is a basic prompt, basic. And so you'll notice that it's actually going out now. It's calling the website, and it went through and it scraped the website and grabbed some text. I have no idea what it's going to come up with, but it depends on how well the website was constructed, is how well the tool will read it. So let me just hide this code here. All right, so the website Beacon for Life serves as a platform for nonprofit professional associations for senior level executives. The organization focused on networking, so it may have grabbed these exact sentences. It may have taken the idea and crafted it around the idea. I'm sure, Zoe, does this look like exactly what's on the website?
Not exactly. The nonprofit part, I think, is pulled somewhere weird.
It's probably did that because it's a .org website. I bet it derived that from that. Yep. So there was some intelligence in it where it saw .org, so it assigned it to nonprofit. Their motto, networking for life, it picked that up, and then it kind of gives you features of what the organization does, comes down, and then gives a little link to go out to the actual website. So in practical, is anyone on the call who's actually used this plugin, and do you have any stories of it being of value? And then I'll share my experiences. Anybody used any plugins on the call? Okay, so I think it demos nice, and it is good if let's say there's a web page where someone wrote a blog, and you want to grab the text from the blog, and you want to use those ideas for a PowerPoint presentation. Then I think the plugin's good. If you want to have it analyze your own website and give you suggestions to improve it, I think the plugin has a good feature there. As far as using for sales and saying, go out and find all the CFOs of companies $500 million in revenue or below in the Philadelphia area, it's not going to work for that. There'll be other tools, and there are tools coming out to do that, but this is not going to do that. Think of it as a point solution. It will go to a website, it will scrape, it will grab, and there are some scraping tools as well in the plugins, and it's pretty decent at that. It will also help you grab specific messaging. Let's say I wanted to send Mitch an email. It's going to grab specific messaging, and then I want to do that as a next example here. Let's say this is someone that we want to reach out to, and I could say, write an intro email. I could say to the executive director or whatever, but my company is clarity.ai. So now it will go to my website and grab my information, and then it will craft an email to the leadership of Beacon from me. Now, a lot of you guys have seen this kind of email, and it drives people crazy to get generic emails like this. But what is different about generative AI, and it's very different than us just using templates or using a supervised AI model that just drops words into a template. This allows us to change and tighten it up. And so now we may have this generic one where it kind of, in today's rapidly environment, it's kind of introducing AI, and then it's saying what sets us apart. I could say, make the email more personal and mention our meeting at a conference in Orlando where we discussed AI and AI and manufacturing, we'll say. And also discussed Mitch's hobbies of hiking. So one of the things you can do, and this is how we use it, is take all of your knowledge, and in this case, it's a very simplified example, but it's saying, I scraped the website. Now I met Mitch in Orlando, and we talked about AI and manufacturing. We also discussed Mitch's hobbies, hiking. The more details you provide, now when I click go, now take a look. Now it will customize the email and make it much more specific and personal. And the leverage you'll get out of this AI models, all of them, is when you bring expertise and you leverage its expertise to augment you. You're not going to be able to hit a button and all your problems go away, but it is an incredible augmentation tool. So let's see what it produced here. Hope to see you. I'll find you well. It was a pleasure meeting you at the recent conference in Orlando. Our discussion about AI's role in manufacturing, and I was particularly intrigued by your thoughts on this subject. I also enjoyed learning about, I didn't spell Mitch's right, but hiking adventures. It was refreshing to meet someone who appreciates the great outdoors. So the more you feed it, it does a pretty good job of integrating it in if you give it good guidance. Then it kind of introduces my company and then continues on. And you'll notice the style of writing is because of how I set it up in the settings section. Remember back when I went over to custom instructions, everything it writes is using this as a context. It's not using sales language, it's avoiding business cliches and plateaus, and it's friendly but professional tone. All of that is being driven because I set this custom instruction up. So the more details you put into your custom instruction and the more details you feed it, it will make it a very highly customizable document. And that's how we do proposals now, is we feed a whole bunch of information in from a customer, and then we craft it, and it really produces just a very nice document. And it's very detailed. It doesn't look like AI wrote it because it's very specific to what the clients need. So any questions on how this would work in your environment, or using plugins to generate scrape content from websites, or any thoughts or any use cases?
This is Barbara, and maybe it's not, if it doesn't fit right here in this discussion, maybe at the end, but from what I've heard, a number of authors are suing the organization producing ChatGPT, because they say since all their books and all their information is being put into the open source, that books and articles, etc., they're using the author's words or the way that they write, etc. Do you have any thoughts about that, or do you want to comment on that later?
Yeah. How about this? I'm going to do this. I like to start off with ChatGPT, and then I like to show the why. And so I'll address that in a sec then, just doing that. All right, so why can this do this, what it's doing? You know, I've kind of introduced it, but I just have a couple slides to go over, and we'll address also what Barbara was saying. So this is what we're looking at here. So ChatGPT is the tip of the iceberg. As I've mentioned, that the actual technology is called generative AI, and there are other models even beyond what OpenAI's created. There's open source models, and then there's what's called frontier models. And the frontier models are the ones that are training their AI model on the body of knowledge on the internet. And so whatever is out there in books and Wikipedia and articles and everything, that knowledge is what these frontier models are being trained on. Examples of frontier models like Google's Gemini model, OpenAI's GPT. There's a company called Perplexity, there's a company called Anthropic, and then there's a couple more. And these are the ones spending the billions of dollars to go learn the world. And they all fall in generative AI. ChatGPT is just an application, just a user interface into using it. So let's talk about these things. So the term is large language models. And so the large language model, like GPT or like Google's, have been trained on all this data, which includes authors, which includes people's images and pictures and art and music, all of that stuff. It is owned by people who originally were the creators of it. And these models did learn from all that, either the images or the videos or the music or the text. So they're definitely the conflict now is, well, wait a minute, I have a book, and for instance, any of you guys know who Peter Thiel is. Peter Thiel wrote the book 0 to 1. Well, it's a great startup. It's a great book for startups and entrepreneurs. And you can go in and say, I want you to act as Peter Thiel and be my coach. And I'm going to present you some cases, and it will act as Peter Thiel. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, that's something the courts will decide and how they get compensated. I think the genie's out of the bottle now, because now the open source models have learned from the frontier models, and that's kind of going a whole way. So I'm not sure you could ever put that in a bottle and change that. But that's the reason why, is because these large language models were trained on text, the body of knowledge on the internet, the human body of knowledge to date. It's not everything. It's not things behind firewalls, unless they were granted access to that, but it's anything that was available. So, but in our case, the users of it, we are the beneficiaries of generating content that the model was learned on the others' work. No different than if you went out and did a research paper and you read on the internet and you grabbed all kind of information and then you wrote a paper or a blog. But so I don't know how that's going to play out, but that's the background of it. It's not only text, it is also images as well, and artists who've created images. Any questions on that? Okay. The key concepts here. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question going back just pragmatically. So when you use this for a sales proposal, do you put all your information in and you generate, and then do you take that and refine it? Or do you, I guess when I've done it, I do regenerate a couple of times and see how it morphs it. I take the one I like the most and then I work on that. But do you do that, or do you refine something since you've done it before? I'm just curious the most efficient way to.
Sure. Yeah. I'm gonna go back in and do an example that's related to that. So how about I just cover that when I go back into the tool? I want to go over a couple more of the whys, so everybody has it. And then Drew, I'll cover that the first when we get back into the tool, because it's a great question. I have a really good example for that. Couple basic slides. Just want to go over how smart. Okay, so what are the use cases, and then how smart is this thing? So these are the use cases at a high level. This is from deeplearning.ai. So which is a great resource for learning. And so there's 5 use cases for generative AI. Essay writing, which we're all used to, which is writing a proposal. And just saying, I want to write a proposal to offer HR consulting to a company that's a manufacturing company and they have 20 employees or whatever. It's very good at that. And that's an example we'll go over. Summarization is very good at taking a large body of text, maybe 30, 40 pages, and saying, extract the key points out of these 30 or 40 pages and give me a summary. And so that's summarization. It's good at that. Translation, it not only can translate one of the spoken languages, but it also, that's why it translates to computer languages as well. So we could enter, create a moving average on this data, and it will write to Python to create that moving average. And so we don't need to know the formula in Excel to write a moving average on a set of data. We will speaking English and it will translate it to Python. And so I have an example of that, but we could also say, here's a memo to the work community, write this in Spanish and English, and it will write it in both. And then if you wanted for instance, if you wanted to adjust the language down so it's a little bit easier to read, you could say, write it so it's at a X level education. My business partner wrote a technical paper for an environmental board that he's on, and the board said it's too complicated. There was too much jargon in there, and the average person in the community to read that document needs to be written at a lower level. And so he went back and changed it, write it so at a 6th grade level, and it wrote it, and it was really easy to read, and everybody loved it. So it can do translation, it can do tone changes. It's very good at that. Information retrieval. You can spin through a document like a legal document and say, extract the provision or the section that's related to intellectual property, and we'll pull that out. Or look for commonality across this data set, and it'll pull different pieces of information out. Or pull the names out of individuals so we don't have personal information in a document. We loaded we actually had AI create a medical record for a hospital stay, and then we had AI, it was all generated by AI, but then we had AI remove the personal information, remove the name, first name, last name, birth, date of birth, remove each piece and anonymize the record. And we're able to get that to work. And then finally, which is really where the biggest opportunity with generative AI is coming, is you'll be able to invoke APIs and you'll be able to call other AI models. So you will be able to ask it to do something, and it may actually go and call 3 different APIs to perform that task. And so the natural language interface to invoke APIs that can do other actions is where we think, the biggest opportunities are going to come for building applications. And it's just going to take it to another level. So we'll look back one day and think, just writing emails or proposals was nothing. That was simple. The real power of this is to be able to engage with computer systems using natural language. So those are the different use cases. And then how smart is it? Okay, so for everybody's benefit, this is why it can do some of the things it's doing. So
Hey, Dan,
yes. Yeah.
So can you go back to that slide for one moment?
Sure.
For like summarization and information retrieval, and potentially invoke APIs. You're reading an outside document, right? So it could be a PDF or a Word doc or something. Do you need a plugin to be able to get that in? Because otherwise you have to copy and paste a 40-page document to have it summarize it.
Right. Yes, and it's something I'm near and dear with, and it's a great question, Jay. All right, so these ChatGPT has a context window, and so it is true you could take a 3-page document, paste it in, and say summarize it. But what happens when we have a 20-page document, or we have a 40-page document? There's 2 options. One is there are plugins that will read PDFs and extract information from it and summarize it. And then also the code interpreter tool or the data analysis tool also can go through, and that uses Python libraries to extract information out and summarize. I have found some limitations with this. And so one of the things I'll introduce to everybody tonight is there is another AI tool, just like ChatGPT, called Claude. Claude, you can paste a document that's 70,000 words. And so you can pretty much paste anything you need. You can load that in and you can take advantage of the entire AI model, can spin through 75,000 words and can interact with that document. So for long documents, I have switched over to using Claude because one of the things we do is we record meetings. And so we may have a 35-page meeting transcript and it has all sorts of great nuggets in there. We will paste it into Claude and use that to interrogate the data and to do more than summarization. We do all sorts of things on it. So ChatGPT, you can use the plugin or the advanced data analysis tool because you can upload a file, which I'll show everybody, or you can switch over and use Claude, which has a massive context window and pretty much can do, most of us don't have more than 75,000 words in our document. So anyway, does that answer your question? Okay, and I'll show everybody Claude real quick. All right, so just interest of time here, so it's 6. Let me just go over this and then we'll get back into some other examples. How smart is it? Well, it scored 94th percentile on the SAT. It scored a 92 in this grade school math program. The bar exam, it scored at the 90th percentile. It is pretty good at legal. I have to say I use it all the time for legal. And it's pretty darn good. I produced some pretty nice agreements with it. Now you have to know what you're doing and talking about. I wouldn't just offload the completely to. I would augment yourself, not offload the entire piece of work. The medicine, it's very good at medicine. You can try this. Take your blood work. If you have questions about your blood work, paste your blood work in and say, provide me 10 questions to review with my doctor. And it will analyze your blood work. I tried it for a couple of things and it was pretty good. So if you have questions and you're getting ready to meet with a doctor and you have a particular diagnosis or something or symptoms, don't be afraid to use this to generate ideas and to prepare you for your meeting with your doctor because it makes you more productive and it allows the doctor to get up to speed on things pretty quickly too because it's well thought out. And these are well thought out and structured questions. And it's not going to replace our doctors at this point. It's an augmentation tool. Biology, IQ exam, common sense. So you will see that definitely has, and this is GPT-4, which is still considered beta. It does have an ability, even though it's what's called a word predictor. I think you will see as you engage with it, it is more than just a word predictor. There's definitely a level of natural language understanding that we can all take advantage of to augment us. And that's why you're seeing it used in so many different use cases, because it understands language and it happens to understand a lot of facts. Any questions before I jump back in to more examples?
Yeah, so Dan, a year from now, how will this chart look? Will ChatGPT get smarter relative to humans as it learns more?
Yeah, that's the great question, right? There's a term AGI, it's artificial general intelligence when these things exceed our capabilities. I would say it's already exceeding some of our capabilities because I don't know anyone who scored this level on all of these tests. And so right now, I want to throw this out. It's a paradigm shift for everybody, but when you're using these tools, don't assume that you are the leader of the tool. Don't be afraid to say, well, wait a minute, how would you solve this problem? And push it to the AI and let the AI give you recommendations. So we were doing a demo for a cardiology practice, and I was preparing the demo. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'll just ask it to prepare the demo for me. And I turned it around and said, I'm meeting with a cardiology practice. I want to demonstrate generative AI on medical records and on revenue cycle. Provide me some examples that I can use. And it provided me the demo examples. Then I thought, well, wait a minute. How about you just act as a demo terminal and I'll just ask you questions and you just make data up. And so in the old world, right, we would build that demo. But in the new world, that cognitive work to do that, I turned it over and said, no, you do this. And it did an incredible job because it came up with questions and ways that I could demo generative AI that I wasn't thinking about. So when you come up with, and I'll go over this once again, I have that example to do that as well. So I would say it already demonstrates capabilities that I think are smarter than a lot of us in maybe not common, maybe not our ability to be creative or human relationships and things like that, but it's pretty darn smart already. And so GPT-5, will that be around in a year? I have no idea, but its reasoning skills and its knowledge are pretty strong right now and will only continue, I would expect.
And Dan, this is Barbara again. I know someone who is a leader in executive coaching, and he went to ChatGPT to see how it would handle issues that you might talk with a coach. And he said it was amazing. He rated it at the worst a C, but said it was probably more like a B plus in some of the things that it was able to do to help people. Which then said, gee, what does that mean with coaches? So it's an interesting thing about what it's able to do.
It is. And it's a great question. What does it mean for the role we play in a lot of the jobs we do? I know from our perspective, it's augmenting us and allowing us to do things and spend time on things that honestly are more creative but that's my particular role. There are going to be roles where this thing does a better job. And so I do think there's going to be an HR role to help companies navigate this. And how do you deal with the people? There's real people on the other end of some of this change, like any change that comes. But I think a lot of us will find that it's an incredible augmentation tool and gives us almost superpowers in some areas to be 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times more productive in some cases. Okay, so let's jump back to the tool here. All right. So another example that I had mentioned multiple times was the ability to analyze documents or Excel files. So in the GPT-4 tab or the button, down here, it's called Advanced Data Analysis. So if I click on that, we now have the ability to do the upload. We can upload the files, and we can upload pictures, and we can WAV files and all this kind of stuff. Today, my examples are going to be uploading Excel files and uploading Word documents, things like that. So the first thing is if I click on this little plus button and I come over to my folder, and I click on my little folder here, and I have a raw data file, and I'll actually open this up and show everybody what it looks like. So you can load multiple Excel files. So that's the neat part about it is I can load 1, 2, 3, multiple. So if I double click on this Excel file and just show everyone, this is a lead list that contains a workbook that contains 3 sheets: calling, follow-up, and meeting schedule. And it has a lot of problems. The data is in the title column. There's emails in here. It's miscased, everything. And so one of the things you can do is you can ask it to do data cleanup and lots of different activities on it. So I'm going to just pull this little Word doc out of here just so it's not in the way. And so the first thing, I'm going to just copy and paste it so I don't have to retype everything. So first thing you want to do whenever you load Excel files, certainly in the beginning when you're working with them, say analyze the attached file and identify the sheets. In my case, I like it to I do this because I want to make sure that it understands the data structure. And so first thing it does in this, and we're using the advanced data analysis tool in GPT-4, it runs Python. And so we'll go out and it will import the library, pandas, and it will load the Excel file, and then it will look at the Excel file. The file contains 3 sheets: call list, follow-up, and scheduled. And so now I'm going to give it another piece of work to do. And you could continue on because it says, would you like to dive deeper into these sheets for specific analysis or insights? Actually, I'll say yes and see what happens. And you have to play with this. It's pretty good on a scale of 1 to 10. I would still say it's probably a 7. Sometimes it fails and things like that, but it's pretty good. And so we'll say analyze the calling list sheet. And so it's going to execute the Python. And this is really a game changer for most of us, because I mean, I've been in data analytics and we've helped clients for years, but I don't write Python. And now for the first time, we have a tool that we can engage in natural language, and it will write Python to do analysis in Excel files. And it's not something just for data scientists. I mean, you probably have Excel files where you're doing data cleanup or you want to analyze some data. You now have the full capability of Python to do very deep data science on it. Okay, so it just said the call list contains a wide range of columns, 73. Some of the key columns include, and it goes down. So I want to do a cleanup exercise now. So I'm going to paste a prompt in, and let's see. I say standardize the column names across the calling list, follow-up sheet, meeting scheduled sheets for uniformity. For instance, consolidate versions such as last name and last space name. So you always want to give it an example. If you're asking it to do something like a data cleanup or categorization, give it an example, and it will perform better if you do that. And so we'll click go ahead and see what happens. I ran this earlier and it ran into a little bit of a problem, so I don't know. But now it's going to take that, and once again, executing the Python. I don't know the Python to do this. I don't know the libraries. I have no idea how to use Python to do cleanup. And so now it's going through and doing its thing. It looks like the output was truncated, but I have enough information to proceed. So I think that's like a bug or something in the tool. Here's the plan. So it tells you what its plan is. Consolidate variations with names like last name and last space name. Just like I had mentioned, standardized zip code. And now it's going and doing its thing. There's all kind of functions in Python. Even if you don't know Python, it's the most powerful programming language on the planet, at least for all of our cases. And there are so many libraries that are created to perform different data applications that it's amazing, and we don't need to know any of them. You know, this type of a tool will go figure that out. Okay, so all right, the column names have been successfully standardized, calling it blah, blah, blah. All right, would you like to save and update the sheet back to Excel? So I can download it now back to Excel, or I can apply another piece of work to it, and that is I want it to consolidate all 3 sheets. So I say consolidate the records from calling sheet, follow-up, and meetings, and into a single sheet called total list. Now, anyone who's done this before knows this is painful. It's complicated. It's frustrating. You got to have someone do it, or if you're doing it, you spend a lot of time. And we've beat it up pretty good because we've used it for a customer. We're trying to teach how to do this, and we beat the tool pretty good. I mean, it does have some limitations, but they're going to get better. Like, it appears the attempt to concatenate the sheet failed due to some columns having the same name. Let's correct this by first ensuring that all column names across the sheets are unique. So it will self-heal itself too. If you're working with it and it encounters failure, it'll fix itself. It will try to fix itself. Seems the attempt is still encountering issues, blah, blah, blah. To resolve, I'll first clean up. So it's still going. It's going to keep trying, which I think is demonstrates the power of generative AI. In the way we use computers now, if it fails, you're done. You have to figure out what the issue is. In this case, if it fails, it will try to resolve it. And now it's going through another set of activities to clean the data. Okay, now it says it was successful. Now we have 4,000 rows, 217 columns, and we say download to Excel. So I don't know what that was all about that it was going through, but it was going through a bunch of things that it ran into and it fixed it. And now we get our Excel file. And so what it will do is give us a link, and then we click on the link and it drops it up into here, our downloads. We open it up. There was a hyperlink in there or something. All right, so it looked like it messed up the top column there. I don't know what's going on there. But it consolidated all 3 sheets into one. And it gave us this weird thing here, which I'm not sure. So what I would do, I'm going to stop here, but I would go back in and say it did not label each column properly, and it will actually fix it. I'll just do it now. The columns were not labeled correctly. Please review. So this is how you're going to be engaging in this. You're going to get answers. You're not going to be happy. You're going to go back. You're going to, back and forth. Very similar what Jay was saying about building, and we'll cover that one now. Building a proposal, it's not one size and it's all ready to go. It's a constant iteration. But think of it, you have a pretty powerful partner on the team now where you'll be just iterating through and working. Once you get your prompts down, it's pretty good. It does a pretty good job. And so now it's just going through and resetting the column names. If it doesn't work this time, we'll move on. But
Dan, question for you.
yes.
What would you estimate, or what would you say your confidence level is that it's not, deleting massive chunks of data or consolidating two things that shouldn't be consolidated? Like, how do you actually verify that it's done the right thing without going through 4,000 columns worth of, or 4,000 records worth of
4,000
data?
rows. It's a great point. I have an auditing background, so I come from that. I have, we did something last week and we told it to audit itself, and it went through and we said, do sampling and audit yourself and prove to us the numbers are correct. And it did a pretty good job because it actually identified different values, not for this example, but it went through and then it showed us the individual records that were underneath that number so we could reconcile that. So in this case, how I would do that is do a count. I would say sum up all the records in all 3 sheets, and what does that equal? And then if it equals that 4,000, but I would actually probably turn it around on it and say, come up with a way to audit it so I can trust that 4,000 number is accurate. So that's the different part of our thinking, is we have to think like, turn the burden back on the AI on a lot of things and force it to show you its reasoning chain and its logic and prove itself. Okay, so the columns have been successfully consolidated into a single data frame. And all right, so I'm not going to download, but so because I definitely want to cover a few more things. This tool here, we also can, as I mentioned, you can upload a Word document. And so I have an example of a lunch meeting transcript. So I had a meeting with people, 2 people, and I said, do you mind if I record it? And I recorded the meeting on my phone. And so I brought came home, took the meeting and transcribed it into text. And that text is in this you know what, I'm going to start a new chat for this one just so it doesn't get confused. So if I click the plus button, click on lunch meeting, the lunch meeting looks like, just so everyone can see it. See where it is. Here it is. So the lunch meeting looks like this. It's multiple pages of just text. And so one of the things we've been doing is taking text like this, 10, 20, 30 pages, and extracting information out to help us build proposals, help us do status reporting, help us identify requirements for a project. This is just filled with gold. And so how we did it in the beginning was we were using GPT-4, the data analysis, and we were uploading the document. And then we'll say, the attached is text from a meeting with a customer. Summarize the meeting using bullet points. And so it will go out and it will analyze, but it's using Python to do this. And I'm going to show you today 2 different ways of doing this. And this is fine. It probably will. Let's see. The document appears to be a transcript of a meeting with a customer. To provide summary, I'll read through it. So it's using Python to grab the text, and then it's using the generative AI model to then summarize that. And I don't think this is the best way to do it, but I'm going to show everybody because it's important you know that you can do this feature inside of ChatGPT. All right, so it appears the initial attempt summarizing did not capture the essence of the discussion. So it figured out that, and the reason why is because Python can only grab so much text from it. It's not the ideal scenario, but it came up with it. So based on the meeting, here are the summarized bullet points, and so it does it. And most of your tools now will do this, like Zoom, Meetup, Google Meet. They all do this now. They'll give you a summary of your meeting. But what they don't do, and although one I found today actually does do some of this, is the other option is you could take your text and let me just find you could take your lunch meeting text, copy it, and we can then paste it, open a new chat. Because it's 4 pages, you can't paste it into GPT-4. It doesn't have a big enough window. But in 3.5, you can paste it in. And so now we have 4 pages of text, and we can say, summarize the below meeting text into bullets. And now it's in the context window, so it's using the full power of the AI model to spin through every single sentence there. And it does do a better job in doing that. And so one of the examples that we do all the time now is to say, okay, now we have this great meeting text, but let's run a set of prompts on this meeting, like nuance finding. Identify any nuances that were discussed during the meeting. Main theme deviation. Were there any comments or thoughts that diverged from the main theme of the meeting? Outliers, fresh insights, implicit suggestions, key learnings. We can run all these prompts on a meeting and get completely different perspectives on that meeting. So if you're meeting with a customer, you could have 10 different views of that meeting just by running different prompts. And here's a funny one, emotional tone. You can see who was grumpy on the meeting, who was, hostile, who was friendly. It will pick up the tone, question analysis, all sorts of things. So if I run nuance finding, I'll take this text that we just ran and we'll say, let's do some nuance finding on that meeting. Okay, certainly there were some nuance findings and underlying interpretations in the discussion, and then it kind of just goes through. Now, these are, I'd have to read through each one of them. But you can imagine, right? Now, all of a sudden, the meeting you have, you're getting all kinds of rich insight. I mean, you could say, you know, provide me some ideas for writing a proposal to the prospect. And so now we'll come up with, based on that text and based on the discussions. Let's see if this is okay. Actually, you know what? It's providing me a generic. I'll say, using the above meeting text, provide me some ideas for writing a proposal. Okay, so it is grabbing some things from what we discussed, because we did talk about AI training and curriculum development, AI powered. There was some, let's see, I can't tell if this is generic or if it's from the anyway, you'll have to go through and kind of try this. Now, one of the things I mentioned to you was, well, what if you have multiple pages and you can't load it into ChatGPT? Well, the other way, and I'm going to introduce the next tool here, is there's a tool called Claude. And think of Claude as it's a competitor to ChatGPT, and you can sign up for free, and it has the same thing. It has a little prompt window, but the difference is, and I only use Claude for this purpose. If you have a large body of text and you want to extract insight from it or slice it, you can just come into this, paste, and it actually creates a text file. And then you could say, summarize the below meeting text. Click go, and it has no problems working with large volumes of data. And then we will run that same nuance finding prompt on it. Okay, so it went through and just said the speaker discussed how reading, writing, arithmetic are traditionally seen as core skills, but technology and so forth. Then I click nuance finding, and then it'll perform the analysis. I like it. It's fast. There's no limit to the data you can put in, and you can slice it all kinds of ways. And you can write very long blogs using this tool. And, you know, it's just like ChatGPT, same exact feature. Okay, so now it said upon closer examination, there are a few nuanced ideas that emerge. They note that AI requires human-machine partnership. There is some skepticism voiced about AI's capabilities. That was true during the meeting. When discussed training with AI and personal data, there was an unstated assumption that the users own. So it kind of pulled stuff out. Just go to 625. I'm just trying to. All right. So any questions on taking our text and using these tools to analyze either Excel, PDF, Word, and really extract meaning out of it? And remember, all this is meant to then give you content to be able to do either a proposal or a requirements document. All of those, you're creating other content, but you need sometimes this information to help build that. So I'll just pause here. All right.
I have a question, but mine is really basic. I don't know whether you do this. I haven't gone on to ChatGPT yet, and it's one of those things where I know I need to do this. So for me, having hands-on, you've given a wonderful high-level look at ChatGPT and also generative AI, so I have a better understanding intellectually. But for me, I need hands-on. So can you recommend either any virtual or in-person training, like a 1 day or 2 day program that I could actually learn it by using it? Do you do that, or does anyone recommend?
Well, there's YouTube videos, of course, and then we do run a hands-on workshop where we'll do a 4-hour workshop where it's everybody brings a laptop, and if it's for a company, they'll bring their very specific needs for the company, and we just build stuff. There's no substitute for that. And even after a 4 hour, what we learned is the value of a community of knowledge sharing. So we promote hands-on workshop, and then internally try to have an organization build a community of knowledge sharing, because people are going to be using this stuff all the time, and you want to hear how other people are using it. It's really beneficial to hear others are using it. But I would start with, we do that workshop, and we think it's incredibly valuable because you get to really build stuff on your own. So that's how I do think you have to do it hands-on, and you just have to jump in. But you can't be alone after that. And that's why I've been thinking, how could we do a user group? How we, maybe, I think that's needed, a user type group that we used to do in software. I think AI could benefit from a user group, because then we all get together and we share knowledge and everybody gets better. I want to show one more thing for those of you who want to do research. There's a product called Perplexity AI. Just like ChatGPT, it uses the same thing. It uses GPT-4 and Claude as the engine. However, it is fully connected to the internet with all sorts of references. So if I say, how can I learn ChatGPT? And it will go out, and first thing it will do is find different sources. And then it will come up with a recommendation. There's several resources available to learn ChatGPT, a generative. But the beauty of it is all the resources are cited, and it is also has the ability to generate content. So I could even say, I don't write an outline for me to for a learning plan. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm just adding it. So now it created a learning. Okay, so it actually created a generic learning plan, not related to that. But you could say write a learning plan for me to learn ChatGPT. I think it's a really good tool, and I've been using it a lot. So check it out. If you're going to do some research, you want to have a live connection to the internet, but you like the interface of a chat, Perplexity is really good. And there's a lot of money behind this company, and it's only going to get better. So definitely worth trying out. Next time you have something that you want to research, definitely try this tool. And it's free. There's a free version and there's a paid version. Okay, so much more honestly to talk about. And so I'll just leave it. When you get the PowerPoint, that's going to be sent out. There will be some references in there, like the leading chatbots. I didn't get to do image generation. There's the ability to generate images. And I have some useful links at the end of the PowerPoint. So feel free to check some of these out. And they'll help you get started here. So a lot to cover, but I'm happy to hang around and take any questions or anything. I have no place to go.
Dan, this is really helpful. Thank you. You demystified a lot. Yeah, like Barbara, I want to dig in, but thank you.
I think it was great, but I'm not sure he demystified for me. Totally confused me. I got more work to do. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I may have made it more complicated, but yeah.
Well, Dan, this is chapter 1. I think Mitchell and I will talk, and we'll see if we can set up another chapter. And as you said, once you get it out, people will have your contact information and your resources. So this is just the beginning.
Well, my quick thought there, Eleanor, was maybe a 4-hour training for Beacon for those who want to sign up and work with Dan.
Mitchell and I and Dan can have to follow up and get Zoe involved, and we can go forward. I mean, I think this was well received. Mitchell, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you want feedback to come?
Absolutely. Send it to either of us.
That would be great. We want to know what our customers want, and I think we're hearing that this is definitely, perfect start. And we can take it from here. So feel free to email Mitchell and I exactly, some details of what you'd like, and we can have a further conversation. It was excellent.
That we can build whatever it takes. We've got the resources, and if we don't have them, we'll get more.
Yeah, and folks, can you imagine having like 20 people and everyone's doing stuff in ChatGPT and AI. Just the value of that is just be incredible.
And where do you do your workshops?
Either on site at a client, on site at a company, if it's a company focused one, or it could be a company lending a room. Or we could do it, I happen to use a facility in Conshohocken, but I mean, anywhere. The key is people have to be signed up. They have to have ChatGPT Plus. They have to have a laptop. They don't have to, but it makes the most out of it. And they have to, I like people to bring stuff with them. Like bring problems that you want to try and experiment with. And it makes it so, plus it not only helps you, the other people sitting in the room see you working on something and like, wow, wait a minute, that's a great idea. And so that's really there's some prep but it really makes it just fantastic. It's really great when multiple people are doing this. I learn something all the time, and you guys will too. Every time you work with this tool, it's amazing what you can do with it. And just remember everyone, we're still in the beta. If I click the drop down here, it all says beta. This is very early days, but I'm pretty impressed, and some of the things we've been able to do have been pretty good.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.